I'm Sally Folkard. I'm the manager of Film Hub North. For descriptive purposes, I am a tall white woman with an orange dress and dark brown hair. I'm one of the producers for the conference, and pleased to say we're in our 9th year. That someone reminded me this morning, which seems quite a feat. But welcome to the DCA. It's a wonderful venue. And this is the Cinema Next Screen 1. And welcome to everybody at home on Eventive. Glad you could join us. So I've got a few of the boring housekeeping bits, but they are important. So I'm going to ramble through those and then we'll get started with the conference. So the first thing to let you know is there are fire exits at the front, just here. If the fire alarm does go off, it's not a drill, so please follow the wonderful DCA staff. They know exactly where we're going. There's toilets on every floor, just some outside and turn right on this floor. We've got a quiet room as well, so that can be used for just some space to kind of gather your thoughts. Please don't take any meetings in there, but it can be used for prayer, it can be used for some quiet time, and that is situated below the cafe, bar and cinema, so follow your signage going all the way down. If you're joining us remotely or in person, please have a minute just to check the code of conduct. We want to make sure everyone has a really positive time together. You can do that on Eventive or you can do that on our website. For audience members in the cinema, live captioning is available on the screen over here. And if you're watching on Eventive, you should be able to click the live captioning button on the lower right-hand side of the screen. What we're doing today with questions is we're using something called Slido. So you should see a QR code here. And there's also one, if you have the colourful schedule, there's one on the back. You can scan the QR code or you can just go to Slido and type in the code that will be on the screen all the time. We're using this to gather questions, so at any point during the conference you can type your questions away and there'll always be somebody on the front reading those through to the chairs. So please do use that. It's a really good way for us to get your thoughts and make sure you're heard as part of the conference. You can do that at home as well online, so we'll be able to see all of those questions and you can take part. If you're struggling with anything at all during the conference, including Slido, the staff are all wearing our pink People Make Glasgow lanyards, so just come and wave at us and we will help you in any way we can. We like to recycle. So any problems at all, just let us know. We've also got a photographer who's called Kat, who's around at the back. She's waving. We've got a videographer called Richie and our marketing team, Sandra and Anna. They will be around taking photos, getting clips. If you don't want to be photographed and you haven't told us that already, please just give the staff a bit of a nod and we can make sure that we do that. A little plug for the VR work we've got going on. We're really blessed to have Story Futures downstairs. So if you follow all the way down, all the way through the conference today and up till about 2 o'clock tomorrow, you can experience VR, as well as there's a Story Trails Dundee AR tour, which we'll be doing at the break and at lunchtime. I'll tell you a bit more about that later, but you can just come to the delegate desk and we will sort you out and you can go outside into the fresh air and do the wonderful AR tour. A couple of final things. Huge thanks to our sponsors, Indie Cinema, Film Distributors Association, and of course the BFI, using National Lottery funds. And I think that might be all of the housekeeping done. So it gives me great pleasure to introduce you to the director of DCA, Beth Bate, and the head of cinema, David Nixon.
Hello, hello. Is that me, is it? Very exciting. Get to use all our new kit that we've got especially for you. Welcome, 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 everybody. It's an absolute delight to get here this morning and see you all here in our busy cinema. I know all of you after the last couple of years, seeing a busy cinema again with lots of people bustling to have a shared cinematic experience brings enormous joy to all of us, and it is enormously warming to me to see everyone here from all over the UK and some familiar faces that I've spotted this morning, folks I've not seen since BC, before COVID, and people who are very new to DCA and new to Dundee. So I'm Beth, I'm director here, and I'm delighted to welcome each and every one of you to DCA today. And for everyone watching at home, hello. This is also very exciting to be broadcast into your home. Welcome to Dundee. Some of you may have come up last night, some of you may have arrived this morning. Many of you, this will be the first time that you've ever come to DCA. I'm going to do a little bit of a whistle stop. This is who we are, this is what we do here. And then I'm going to hand over to David Nixon, who is our still fairly fresh out of the wrapper head of cinema. Alice Black was head of cinema. Many of you have known Alice. Amazing role that she had here, job that she did for the last 12 years, got a fantastic new role in Dublin, and David has joined us in October and has had about 3 weeks in post before he had to step down for some parental leave. He's a new dad and is now back. So after about 4 weeks officially in the post, he's going to be presenting on DCA Cinema to you all. So we're going to be very kind and gentle. So you'll have entered through the front of our building this morning. Wonderful DCA. That would be the other way. Ta-da! Dundee, right here on the banks of the River Tay. We are just opposite the Fife, the most enormous and beautiful rural county, and nestled between Perth and Kinross and Angus. We're really easily accessible from Edinburgh. We're just an hour away. We're about an hour and a half from Glasgow, trains pending and all of that, of course. But it's the most incredible setting that we have here in Dundee. We get to have access to these incredible cities across Scotland, to the rural countryside, to the incredible scenery that some of you have seen looking out across the banks of the estuary and the river there. But right in the middle of this amazing city that those of us who live here and work here are enormously passionate about. It's a very small city. We're about 130,000 people. I was in Newcastle before I came to Dundee for a number of years, and that always felt like quite a small city. Then I've come to Dundee and it seems to have shrunk again. But we really punch above our weight in terms of what we're able to do here in the city, and the commitment from the city to culture and to the impact that culture can have in people's lives right the way across the city, and for everyone who works and visits here as well, is historic. It is long-standing and it is ongoing. So some of our partners in the city, you will know, she says. There we go. V&A Dundee, top left. If you get a chance to visit in your couple of days here, do pop along. It is an absolute feat of design ingenuity, designed by Kengo Kuma, the Japanese architect, his only building in the UK. Opened just 4 years ago, and it seems to have whistled by incredibly quickly. Obviously, those last couple of years feeling slightly odd. But it has the most amazing spaces inside, and a brilliant exhibition at the moment around plastics, the history of plastics, the future of plastics, and an absolutely gorgeous permanent collection that's housed in there as well, full of artefacts and pieces that celebrate the very best of Scottish design and Scottish design history. It is well worth a look, and the views across the banks of the River Tay there are extraordinary. You'll see some of our other heritage partners in the city. The Discovery, absolute personal favourite of mine. If you are a complete heritage nerd and you want to get excited about standing in exactly the spot that Shackleton stood in, next to the place where Scott stood in when they were packed in ice, this is the place to go. I get very, as you can tell, excited about these things. It is completely magical. We have the McManus, we have our castles, we have the stacks. These are all examples of the incredible heritage which is in the city. And the Stacks at one point was the largest chimney in the whole of Europe, and is one of the pieces of history that you'll see around the city, the built heritage, that tell you a little bit more about the city's industrial past as the main centre for jute production in the whole of the UK and the whole of the world. It was an absolutely thriving, bustling, busy, dirty, grimy city, and fell, obviously, as you can imagine, into some troubles and post-industrial era. And you'll still see these incredible buildings around the city, which were the old jute mills. Wonderful, wonderful buildings. Lots being taken over now, and different interesting things being done with them. But the Stack is actually one of the little highlights there. Which brings us to DCA and where we fit into the history of culture within the city. DCA is often seen as the cornerstone, as the cultural life in the city, and one of the organisations that really spearheaded the cultural regeneration of Dundee. If I could press the right button, that would help. There we go. So, many, many moons ago, this was Dundee and this was DCA. So the top left here, you can see this used to be an old garage. This is what you're sitting in at the moment. This was a car garage, and the big buildings, the rooms over that our gallery spaces are in, were big storage yards connected to the railway. And for a long time, after it fell out of use as a garage, it was used as an unofficial skate park and BMX park. And you can see we're still in contact with lots of the people that used to skateboard and hang out here all through the 90s, including our exhibitions manager, who was one of those teenagers who used to come and skateboard here. But some amazing people who have brilliant memories of coming here and using the skate park. And they were moved on to another skate park after this, and DCA was then formed out of these buildings. And it was an unusual project at the time, very unusual. But the model that was formed, that enabled DCA to be formed, is actually now the model that then led to the building and the formation of V&A Dundee as well. So the council came together with what was then Arts Council of Scotland, now Creative Scotland, and with the University of Dundee and DJ CAD, the art school up the road. And they looked at the city, and there were some amazing organisations that already existed in the city, and decided to pull them together and house them in one building. So we are formed from the Steps Cinema, which used to be on the other side of the city, and the Seagate Print Studio, which was also on the other side of the city, were brought together in this new organisation, this new building, with two incredible gallery spaces. What was missing from the city, despite having fantastic museums like the McManus Museum and Art Gallery, was large-scale spaces that we could show contemporary art from all over the world. So these organisations came together in creating this new organisation, DCA. This is us down there on the right-hand side with our old branding. So that partnership project and that way of working together and bringing different organisations, those large organisations together, big funders, big supporters, was I guess is a really good example of one of the things that DCA is really good at. We're small, but we pack an enormous punch. We're very, very good at partnership working. We're very good friends with each other, and we're able to pull together to make enormous things happen, which in 1999 was the opening of DCA. And 20-odd years later, was the opening of V&A Dundee, a really similar approach to partnership and a belief in what culture can do for the city and the people that live and work and visit here. So at DCA, we have 4 main programme areas. We have cinema. Welcome. We'll hear more about cinema on our programme from David shortly, but our cinema is an absolutely core part of our creative and cultural programme. We're incredibly proud to have such a diverse programme that shows films from all across the world, as well as showcasing the very best of Scottish talent as well. We are Dundee's only city centre cinema, so we have a tremendous responsibility to the people of the city to be able to introduce them and guide them and reflect their tastes and introduce them to things that perhaps they might not have thought of seeing elsewhere in some of the multiplexes on the outskirts of the city. So we take that role as being the city centre's only cinema incredibly seriously. And we're able to do a huge amount with our audiences right the way across Dundee, and particularly through our learning and education programme, which we'll hear a little bit about from David, and through Sarah Derrick, our Head of Learning, who's speaking on a panel later in the conference. Also through our amazing Discovery Film Festival, which is for children and young people with a particular focus on schools. Our print studio is part of an incredible network of production facilities right the way across Scotland that support artists and support visual artists at the point of production. So since the 60s, Scottish Arts Council, now Creative Scotland, have funded this network of print studios, of sculpture workshops, of glass-making facilities, of photography sites, to support artists who want to be able to extend and develop their skills in all of these areas. There is no doubt that the success of the Scottish visual arts sector is intrinsically linked to the provision of this easy, cheap to access, heavily subsidised facilities for artists right the way across Scotland. They are absolutely key to what artists are able to do in this country. And we welcome people at all stages of their career to be able to come and use the art space. So we might have community groups in, people coming for beginners workshops, people who are having one-to-one tuition on a piece of machinery and kit that they've never used before, right the way through to artists producing work for international exhibitions and residencies with artists from right the way across the world. Everyone is welcome in that space, and it's a very democratic space for working alongside people with different experiences on some state-of-the-art kit and also some very traditional kit as well. So you can do 3D printing alongside using our Victorian presses, for example. All are used and all are valued. Our exhibitions programme, again, absolutely central to our creative programme here at DCA. And I'm afraid, while you are visiting, we are in a changeover period. We did think about this, but there's very little that we could do, I'm afraid. So our programme's set so far in advance, but we have 2 beautiful exhibition spaces, which we sometimes use for individual shows and solo shows, and sometimes use, as is coming up for an exhibition by Glasgow-based artist Matthew Arthur Williams, sometimes used for a solo show right the way across the 2 spaces. It's about 500 metres squared, making it one of the largest spaces that can be used in Scotland, which means that we can really showcase the very best, not only of Scottish work, which we have a brilliant reputation for working with artists from the country and giving them their first major institutional show, but also bringing in some of the very best national and international work to show at DCA as well. We have a particular focus, as you can imagine, with such a love for film and cinema, in showing film-based and moving image work in our spaces as well. And you can just see our bottom left there is a still from Douglas Gordon's film K364, which was the show before last. Two huge spaces, huge screens, which we were able to show this remarkable film of Douglas's, the first time it had been shown in a public institution in the UK. Right the way to Rayenne's song, a Glasgow-based artist, just above, and her beautiful exhibition last year, which really took over the whole of that enormous gallery too, with this wonderful expanded idea of an insect mother. It's wonderful, wonderful piece. So the exhibitions change roughly every 3 to 4 months, and we work with, again, artists at all stages of their career, particularly interested in giving people a platform who haven't had their first major institutional show, but balancing that against our major artists as well. Our learning programme, so you'll see a little bit of what we do in the building and some in our learning space upstairs, which is very busy, very used space. But most of our work through the learning programme actually extends out right the way across the city, and we do everything from PhD programmes, working with the University of Dundee's psychology department, looking at the impact of creative learning on early years and attachments with parents and babies, right the way through to working with community groups and charities and youth groups right the way across the city. This work did not stop over COVID. So much of what we did had to adapt and change. This will be a familiar story for lots and lots of you, as well as taking our offer online right the way across our programme areas. We were also able to work with our community groups and community partners in the city, for example, Dundee Bairns, the city's hunger charity, to continue providing tailored and carefully put together, working with an art therapist, art bags and art packs that went out right the way across the city through the pandemic and are now continuing. There was a real need for those to continue. So amazing work that the learning programme do. It would probably be a lecture in itself to tell you the breadth of it all, but it's an absolutely key part of how we're able to demonstrate to the people that live in the city and our funders the value of what we do. It is so central to what we do. Our editions and publications, one of the wonderful things about being at DCA is it's not just a place that you can see and you can visit and experience. It's somewhere where you can make and you can do as well. And we're really lucky to be able to invite our artists to do that with us as well. So we have a publications programme that runs alongside our exhibitions programme, and we commission writers and artists and poets to be able to contribute to that. And our editions programme as well, which enables us to create new pieces of work by artists in the exhibitions programme, which we can then sell and generate income for us. Our shop and cafe bar, I think you've all been emailed with your wonderful discount code. Do get shopping, your Christmas gifts await. And the cafe bar, I'm sure a lot of you will be spending a lot of time over the next couple of days. These are really central to our visitor offer, and they're one of the reasons that DCA continues to feel like a busy, buzzy, exciting place. In the year before COVID, we had nearly 400,000 visits to DCA and over 100,000 to the cinema itself. We are not back up to that yet. It will come as no surprise to any of you to hear that. But it is a positive picture, and that it is growing, and we're going back in the right direction. But we know when we see people in the building, we know when we speak to people and the research that we do, how glad people are to be back and how much they value what we and the sector are able to offer. And that is almost perfectly timed to hand over to David Nixon, who is our new head of cinema. Thanks, David.
Hi, everyone. So, as Beth mentioned, my name is David Nixon, and I'm proud to say that I'm DCA's new head of cinema. For descriptive purposes, I am a white male with short dark hair, got somewhat of a beard going on, black winter jumper and black cords. A little bit of a disclaimer before I get into it. Over the course of the past 6 weeks, I've moved countries here in Scotland. I've started a new job here at DCA, and my girlfriend gave birth to our beautiful wee baby boy, Rory, only 3 weeks ago, so forgive me if I look and or sound a bit tired. I am. The past month has been an absolute blur, but it's been the best blur of my life. Anyway, it's really great to see so many friends and familiar faces from across the UK up here in Dundee today, and also a big hello to everyone watching at home. It feels somewhat odd and a little bit surreal to be up on the stage here at DCA, welcoming you all at a time when I'm still being welcomed to DCA by the staff. So I'm going to try my best to highlight some of the great cinema work that DCA does and that I'm looking forward to helping grow and develop and grow audiences for. But first, here's a picture of Ian Banks, our chief projectionist, in our beautiful projection room. And I'd highly recommend anyone, I think I'm right in saying we've got projection room tours that can be booked. I'd highly recommend it to anyone who is a fan of old technology, old projectors. It's easily one of the best projection rooms I've ever seen. So the first thing that I want to highlight is one of DCA's flagship events, and that is Discovery Film Festival. And I think DCA is masterful at engaging children and young audiences with and educating children and young audiences through film, and specifically international film. And Discovery Film Festival is the best representation of how DCA does this. For those of you that don't know, Discovery Film Festival is Scotland's international film festival for young audiences, and it consists of screenings of films from across the world, gala screenings, creative activities, as well as a programme of screenings and events for schools, as Beth mentioned. And it feels quite timely to highlight how important and how impressive Discovery Film Festival is at a time when it's heading towards its 20th edition next year, and at a time when the BFI have announced their new 10-year strategy with the renewed focus of engaging children and younger audiences and recognising the importance of early visits to the cinema. But conscious that we've got a session later on today about children and family programming, at which Sarah, Derek and Moira are going to talk. Sarah, Derek, Head of Learning at DCA, will go into more detail about Discovery. I just want to briefly share an experience that I had at the opening gala in my first week here, that I found both, something the DCA team did to engage the young people, I found both quite profound and quite genius. So there I was at the opening screening with my heavily pregnant girlfriend. I'm about to watch a screening of Oink, which is a charming and quite poignant Dutch animation about a young girl who was given a pig as a birthday present by her granddad. It's brilliant. Firstly, I was looking around the room and I was super impressed by how DCA had managed to attract so many children and young people to watch a film, not only not in the English language, but a film that no doubt none of their parents who'd brought the children knew about previously. And then at the end of his introduction, Mike Tate, who is Discovery Film Festival producer here at DCA, he asked all of the audience, all of the children, to turn around, to look through the projection room window and to wave at the projectionist to let him know that to start the film. And I'll concede that it could have been because we were expecting a baby at any day at that point, and my emotions were quite high, but I found that quite moving and quite profound to see these children interact and engage with the projectionist. It was such a simple, but I think meaningful, joyful and educational action, as it educated children briefly on how the cinema works and where the film actually comes from within a cinema environment. And it just introduced them to the magic of the cinema environment before the film had even started. I thought back to when I was a young boy watching films in the ABC cinema in Whitley Bay or the Odeon cinema in Newcastle. I would always turn around, look up at that beam of light and kind of wonder how it all worked. So it kind of replicated that, and I found it quite powerful. I'm sure that that action, as well as the films themselves, through Discovery Film Festival, created a similar intrigue for all of the children that attend, some of who was their first time in the cinema, which was quite remarkable as well. So I've no doubt they'll be back to watch films here as a result. So yeah, look out for the 20th edition of Discovery Film Festival next year. Come up, come across, come down from wherever you are to see how well DCA manages to engage young people with and get them watching international films in a cinema environment. There's some more kids enjoying Discovery. So what else makes DCA unique? Well, we have Dundee Film Festival, which I'm sure you can work out from this picture, and its name is a horror film festival. And over 10 years, it has developed a really keen and loyal horror audience here in Dundee through screening cult, European and local horror films, and it's programmed by my colleague, Michael Cool. We also have Scottish Encounters, which Beth mentioned. DCA has a commitment to kind of promoting and championing work by emerging Scottish filmmakers and or about Scottish issues. What I like about both Dundee and Scottish Encounters is that they both aim to screen and place films by emerging, unknown and local filmmakers alongside films by more established and well-known filmmakers. And we always invite them along to discuss their work with our audiences. And it's all about supporting local and emerging filmmakers and giving them a platform to disseminate their work and make connections with our audiences. I think DCA is brilliant at it. It recognises its role in the whole ecology of film, and I think it's important to remember that behind these films are people, but also behind ticket sales are people, and by connecting the two together you can create community and meaningful relationships. Another project I'm super looking forward to working on, and I've already started working on, is DCA's Artist Choice Screenings. And through the Artist Choice Screenings we open up programming opportunities to the artists whose work we exhibit up in the gallery space upstairs. For example, alongside his upcoming exhibition, which Beth mentioned, Matthew Arthur Williams has chosen to screen Studio Ghibli's animation Only Yesterday in a programme alongside John Comfra's 1986 documentary Hands with Songs. And what I love about this is that it's giving the curatorial voice to someone with a background from a different art form background and allowing them to add depth and or context to their exhibition upstairs. And of course, both the cinema and the exhibition departments benefit from this through the crossover of audiences and different routes into the building. And then alongside all of the regular festivals and strands that DCA offers, you've obviously got your one-off events with additional activities such as introductions, talks, Q&As, live music. You might be able to see bottom right behind my head. We were blessed with the presence from one of Dundee's finest exports, Mr. Brian Cox, recently, who was here for an event the night after he was on BBC Newsnight slamming and shaming the government. And I'm stealing Beth's anecdote here, but I think I'm right in saying he mentioned to you that he Logan Roy'd them, or he went full Logan Roy on the government, which I thought was quite amusing. So to conclude, one of DCA's aims is to offer opportunities to see, experience and create contemporary art. And it's that word experience that I really want to tap into in my role and really think about how we can offer meaningful and memorable cinema experiences for all types of audiences. And as I'm settling into my new role in a different type of venue, I come from a cinema, single screen, cinema only building. Questions are popping into my mind, such as what lessons can cinema learn from other art forms? What role does cinema have in a multi-arts venue? And what even is film exhibition when you've got such a stark contrast between exhibiting moving image and artist film in a white-walled gallery space and exhibiting more narrative-based film in a dark room? And while I don't have the answers to these yet, I'm looking forward to exploring them further over time, and I'm looking forward to growing and diversifying audiences for everything we show on our two screens here. So anyway, that's all from me. I hope I managed to remain somewhat coherent, and I really hope that you enjoy the conference and get to see some of beautiful Dundee.
My pint of gin and tonic. Thank you so much, David. And this is a little bit of thanks that I would like to do now very quickly to the This Way Up team. Thank you for everything over the last few weeks. I really hope the next couple of days go brilliantly for everybody, but thank you for choosing to come to DCA. We are always so delighted to welcome people to Dundee and to the city. I hope you all get a chance to look around, go down to the waterfront, have an explore, spend some time in and out the building. If you want to have a poke your head into the print studio, they love having visitors and guests there. You are completely welcome to go and have an explore. A particular thanks to the DCA team, particularly in cinema and operations, who have worked really hard on this event. This kind of setup isn't something that we have done in my time, and I've been here 7 years. So I know a huge amount of energy and time has gone into making this as smooth and as brilliant as it can do for all of you. So those overlooked folks that seem to run around with walkie-talkies looking very flustered all of the time, I just want to do a properly big thank you to you. And just to finally echo what David was talking about, that idea about cinema, creating communities and bringing people together is absolutely the reason that all of us are here. It's the absolute core belief in what we do. So thank you so much for coming for these couple of days. Have an absolutely brilliant time. I look forward to lots of chats and seeing folk about. Have a wonderful This Way Up. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And David, we'll give you about a month and then you can answer all of those questions for us. That's all you need. So just bear with us a second while we bring the next session onto the stage, and also give you time to log on to Slido, get set up, because this is a session where we really want to hear your thoughts and questions. So if I can welcome up Alison and Ben for the next session. Thank you.